What's on the Market. Today we are talking about real estate law and why you need a real estate attorney. Today I have with me my attorney, Blake Weber from Weber Law.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I usually like to start out figuring out how we know each other. I don't even know because I feel like I've been following you on Facebook for a really long time.
Well, it's funny you mention that. I actually have been in a very unique position that I've been able to utilize social media to really build the brand.
Mm-hmm.
I joke with clients and referral sources that I've really grown into almost like a brand where people that don't even work with us still know us, follow us, and what's really nice is over time, I have agents that don't want to sit down so that we could have, lunch or coffee to kind of build up a rapport and network. But I do very well with social media.
Yeah.
I'm very genuine, very responsive during this pandemic. I've tried to focus on humor because I know many of us are, this is a stressful time. And it's not normal approach for a lawyer to take.
Yeah.
But in reality, when you're dealing with a real estate transaction, that's a unique issue for an individual because it's their largest legal probably endeavor in their life. But at the same time, they don't want a lawyer that's hyper technical, that's going to be very boring and speak over their head. So what I do well with social media is I believe I show people who I am, my personality.
Oh, it's definitely more comfortable, I'd say, just me using you personally, I love that. I love that we all know what you're doing throughout the day. We know about your wife.
The lady.
I want to meet her because I feel like
does.
I know her. But and seeing where you eat all the time too and what you eat.
We're very fortunate, and I like to share things that are relatable. So for many of the wonderful restaurants that we have here in Rochester, I like to encourage people to go there because we usually develop friendships with the owners, the staff, and I've been able to develop, with my wife's permission, her as the lady. And so it'll be very entertaining. She runs a couple of companies herself, so when she's out in public, people reach
People
out.
go up to her.
I've gotten Facebook Messenger posts saying, "Is your wife the lady at this wedding shower?" And I'll say, "Yes, she is. We must know someone in common. Please
my
go
God.
say hello." And her name's Karen.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I mean, I agree I think your Facebook is awesome. Okay, so I want to kind of start out with your background because I don't know it at all. Where did you grow up? Did you always want to get into law?
Well, it's funny. I grew up and I'm from Webster. My parents still are living in Webster. And I went through the Catholic schools, then McQuaid, which is coincidentally why my firm colors are black and gold.
Interesting.
Then I went to MCC. Black and gold are their colors also. And when I was at McQuaid, I either wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, kind of an advocate position. I wasn't sure where the advocacy would go. But while I was at MCC, I started out in engineering and realized I didn't want to be a patent lawyer because the engineering was fun academically, but doing the work was just too tedious. So I decided to actually switch to an English degree, complete 180 in some people's minds, and decided law school. So I then went to the University of Buffalo for my undergrad and for law school. And when I was in law school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just realized that I liked problem solving. I liked helping people. So I have kind of an advocacy background. And while I was finishing law school, I got an opportunity at a small firm that focused on business and real estate. And didn't go that well at first. Like, it was very hard for me to follow. Like, I was horrible in my first year or so. I had no ability to network. I did not understand a lot of concepts for running a business. And I subsequently moved back to Rochester because I was out at University of Buffalo. I was working in Buffalo. Moved back here on a complete leap of faith, no job, and ended up stumbling back into real estate at a more general practice firm. where they focused on a number of litigation matters, and I ended up doing a lot of the transactional stuff.
Okay.
And then I was very fortunate that after about 7 years, my wife, we'd only been married about a year, and she encouraged me to go out on my own. She's more the business person, more of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I never planned on running a law firm. Now I love it.
Yeah.
It was funny. In the first 10 months of 2013, I did very nicely.
Was it just you at that time?
Just me out of a spare bedroom in Cornhill.
Nice. Okay.
We had a townhouse. I still have clients that go, I remember
Yeah.
closing on your
Oh my
kitchen
God,
table.
how funny is that? Wow. Start small. And now how many offices do you have?
Well, now we primarily, particularly with COVID and everything, work out of our Brighton office.
Okay.
And that's about a 4,300 square foot office. It has 4 conference rooms, and then substantial offices, cubicles, and everything. So what's nice is last Thursday we had 6 closings at 10 a.m.
And there's a place for everybody.
Yeah, and we were able to do it and compliant with the pandemic, which is very
course.
important.
Yeah.
But what's nice is we also have access to a location in Canandaigua and Chile, but we don't use those with any frequency. One, because of COVID right now, but even when they're open, we probably use them a handful of times.
I met you in Chile. That was the first time.
Yep.
Like, yeah, that plaza where Chile, what is it, Chile Ave?
Yeah, well, it's by what is it, Knuckles?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that sports bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly where it is. Okay.
And they're thankfully redoing the parking lot and some other things there.
Okay. And there was other things I feel like when you walked into that area. Maybe
it's a
other
mixed-use
businesses.
building.
Okay.
So it was very convenient for us because after Cornhill, I expanded and still have a property in the Park Ave area.
Oh, good.
And we renovated the 3rd floor of an old Victorian for work. So basically, my wife ran her company, I ran mine. We then had 2 attorneys, Kirsten, your attorney, and Kelly McIntosh, who are still both our attorneys at Weber Law. And it was funny. They literally started working at Weber Law in our 3rd floor servants' quarters that was renovated to be office space.
Yeah. Cool.
And then we
stuck with
expand.
you.
Yeah. Oh, they did, and they're a large part of my success.
Yeah. Kirsten, I don't know how she keeps it all straight, to be honest.
She's really good at her job. She's very academic. So is Kelly. They're both extremely strong attorneys, particularly when it comes to the nitty gritty. Like we get in the industry, amongst other things, I'm sure, probably related to my outgoing attitude. But we're known for being too by the book.
Oh, that's good.
And so we're really, when we have our files go to litigation, which is rare, our litigation attorneys compliment us that we've dotted every I, crossed every T. So our clients are really well prepared. They're usually not aware of that, thankfully. But no, when I was out on my own for a few years, I did very nicely, but wasn't very well known because it was just me. And Kirsten and I went to school together. And so once she joined, it basically allowed me to start just driving the ship and knowing she could take care of everything else. And her position was get out there and get us more work.
Yeah. And
thankfully
now it's
I did.
Overwhelming.
Now it's okay. We have to hire someone else.
We need more employees, which is the greatest problem to have. I guess. And still super efficient. I mean, she sent me a contract back at like 11 p.m. the other day.
My whole staff is extremely dedicated. It's really hard to develop a team. However, we've been very fortunate. We've navigated the pandemic extremely well. We have technology that's at a very high end. So for us, it was not a huge challenge to go to everything being done remotely, electronically. And my people are very dedicated. If anything, now that they all have access at home.
Just over
dedicated. There's times where I'm like, you don't have to work on a Sunday.
You can eat dinner today.
Yeah. So But thankfully, we're all kind of in it together. Like we
Yeah.
really work as a team. The lending department helps each other and communicates between each other. Our attorneys, our paralegals, they're all working to help each other. So I'm usually there to try to, it's almost as if you're navigating through as a musician. And it's like you need the one person that's kind of just going, okay, you're there, you're
Yep.
there, and
Conducting
being,
it.
yeah, being the maestro.
Yeah.
maestro.
So let's see, my other questions. So today I definitely want to focus on why you need a real estate attorney for your real estate transaction. A lot of clients, when I ask who their attorney is, they're like, oh, yeah, our family attorney is this person, whatever. It should be fine. And actually, I remember, this is all coming back to me. You definitely did my first house. You were definitely the attorney on that. And it was another woman I had to meet with about it. But it all came back to me when we were talking about Chilai. Definitely, I was there. Yeah, that was absolutely. Now I remember the closing table. I know who my realtor was and everything. So that is when I met you. But so coming back to my clients, they'll just pick anyone and it's fine. And actually, when I first started my career, I went with a friend on a certain deal, and it was actually John and I. We were buying a house, and it didn't end up working out, and it's a year later now. But in the beginning, I used a friend, and he was not getting back to me. All these things. Like, he just seemed to be dropping the ball a lot. And he's not a real estate attorney.
Well, responsiveness in real estate is key because you have way
Especially
too many.
right now.
Well, right now, definitely. But most other forms of law, the turn time is days or weeks. So if I was doing estate work, it would be very reasonable for me to say, I'll get back to you within 48 hours, business hours. Whereas in real estate, if you're not getting back to someone within hours, there's a real issue. You see my emails. If other than when I'm in a
Immediate.
meeting, oh yeah, it drives people
in
nuts.
the middle of the night. Thank you. I'm like, well, it drives me nuts because, of course, I'm always waiting on the other side.
Well,
I'm
that
like,
is one of the.
I know Blake got it, but what about everybody else?
That is one of the challenges. So what happens is, one, if you're not a real estate attorney, you don't want me doing criminal law.
Yeah.
So in real estate, we get attorneys that just do it to keep busy.
Yeah.
And the problem is we usually can run circles around them, but it would be as if I were to go do criminal law. I assure you, the attorneys could run circles around me. So you have to build up an area where you have a focus. In addition to that, oftentimes other attorneys have obligations that take them out of the ability to communicate. So if you're a divorce attorney, you might be in
They're in
court.
court all the time. Yeah, that's exactly what happened in the situation that I was talking about.
It's funny how easy it is to figure those things out because it's that, or you'll have, but it's my cousin. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what does your cousin do? He's an IP attorney in New York City. And then usually in that situation, I say, well, I would encourage you to allow me to reach out to your cousin, and I'll keep him or her informed. And I assure you, when I reach out to the cousin says, I don't do real estate. I don't know where Gates is in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And I get them out of it by saying, hey, I'll CC in on everything every once in a while if you want to chime in for fun. But this way, when you're at the family picnic, they're not yelling
covered.
at you because you don't know.
Yeah.
We cover New York State, but when we go into new counties, we will reach out. Instead of saying, oh, we're attorneys, we know what we're doing, you're going to do it the Monroe County way,
Yeah.
we'll actually take the time to do an analysis and find out what different practices they may have so that we're best representing our client. Because it varies per county how things are done, but that's because our focus is real estate. And right now, when you send a file to our office and it gets set up with Kirsten Lamb, the idea is that you and your clients are both protected and informed. And so if you have a client that's very anxious which is very easy to do now. I mean, normally it's a possibility, but now there's a lot of frustration. You need someone who's going to respond. And so within reason, we're extremely responsive. We work in all the days that end in Y. We try to, I took a few calls on the 4th of July. However, they were with trusted referral sources. And I said, this is going to be quick because I am at a family function.
Right.
But I also know they respect my time. They weren't calling to check on a status in 6 to 10 days. They were calling because there was a major issue.
Right. I love that. Well, thank you for doing that.
Of course.
Because it is. It's nice to know that my clients are taken care of. And honestly, anytime we have questions about anything, you guys are back to us in minutes. All right. So I also want to go over, just because I don't really know the process.
Yes.
But so when I send over, so my clients decide to buy a house, we agree on everything between the buyers and the sellers. We have a contract. I then send over the contract to the attorneys, so you get a contract. Then what happens?
Certainly. So I'll walk through the process in general for a purchase transaction.
Yeah.
So if the contract comes through my email, I'm going to respond all received and thank you, so that everybody knows that I have the contract, and I know that everybody's email's right, because sometimes their emails come back wrong.
True.
And I'll actually, if I wish to, I'll forward. So people we have good relationships with, I'm going to help out.
You had to do that for me just recently.
And it happens. People miss the T in Blake T. Weber. It's because someone else owns Blake Weber. I wish.
Who is this person?
Yeah, actually, it's an attorney in Texas.
Weird.
Because we've spoken a few times because we go, why are you? We're both lawyers. Wow, with a unique name like Blake
Weird.
Weber.
I know.
So what's nice is whether it comes through me or any other team members, it goes through the exact same process. So it's an acknowledgement of receipt, just to make everybody appreciate that we got the clock running, so to speak. But then it goes through my office manager, and my office manager sets up every single contract, whether it's commercial, residential, or lending, so that we can track everything and have it done consistently. And we actually have a technology called RamQuest that everything goes through, so that I can, right now we have around 370 something contracts. I can go through and sort of see everything, which is very overwhelming to do. And then it's assigned. So the reason that every client of yours will have Kirsten Lamb,
Yeah, why is that?
for your convenience.
Okay.
I'm a unique person, I believe.
Yeah.
But all of our team members are unique. And related to that, we'd rather have you not working with Blake sometimes, Kirsten sometimes, Kelly sometimes.
I love that. And then I guess I can just send it directly to Kirsten. I always send it to, if it's something personal, I always send it to both of you, but usually just you, because I don't know who you're going to, well, now I do, who you're going to give it to.
Right. And there's times there could be personality differences. So we've had times where we'll switch within the firm if there's basically it's if someone has a better style.
Yeah.
So different people
I
mix.
understand that.
And sometimes we'll also have transactions where they'll go, we really would like Blake, to which I'll say, well, that's all well and good. I'll do the meetings and I'll do the approval calls, but you want my team doing the rest of it.
Right.
My attorneys handle my personal work, so I don't even do my own.
But they want Blake at closing.
Yes.
You do
And
make
so,
closings fun.
yes, I try. It's very nice. A lot of my referral sources prep the clients. So the clients will come in and go, okay, we hear you like Paisley.
Yeah.
We're supposed to check out what types of socks you have on and shoes. And then, so many of my clients are prepared for it. Some follow us on social media. And so it could be very interesting. Right now, what I've really enjoyed is many of our clients are super nervous. They're closing in a pandemic, and it's nerve-wracking. If you haven't met me, sitting down with me for the first time is kind of intimidating because I'm your lawyer. We may have only spoken once or twice. You're working with my team. And so when I come in the room, I start out with saying, hi, my name's Blake Weber. I'm working with Kelly or working with Kirsten. And I introduce myself, and at times they're like, oh, are you are you the owner? And it's like, yes, but that has no bearing on anything.
Yeah.
But don't worry, I'm one of the lawyers. And what's been wonderful is lately I've had a number of clients who have said, this was fun. They're like, I was really nervous. I had one gentleman, nice guy, younger, buying his first home with his significant other, and he couldn't sign his name. And normally I try to
You have
read
to sign
people.
it 100 times, so
Yeah,
that's
and
a
with the
problem.
mask, it's a little harder,
Oh,
but
yeah.
his hands were, and so I picked up on it real quick, which was, what was neat was his significant other, she understood everything,
Right.
no nerves. He was terrified. And what was wonderful at the end, I had to excuse myself. I need to make copies,
Yeah.
come back in. And I'm like, congratulations. Any questions? And he's like, I have to tell you, this was fun. I was terrified. I feel like I understand things. You made sure I was comfortable. I was like, oh, I try to do that. I'm like, I have the personality that I have a gift of gab, so I like to
No,
talk.
it's amazing. There's a lot of attorneys that come in there and just shove papers right in front of them.
Yep. Highlight,
Yeah.
sign.
You're so nervous.
Yes.
I get it, because they have no bedside manner at all. It's just another closing for the day.
Well, the problem is this, and I make sure to thank the clients that give those compliments because it helps reinforce. We can close 20 to 50 deals a week. And given that, the repetition, you and we close a lot of deals together. Our clients may close 1 to 3 their entire life.
True.
So I make sure to be attentive to, like, I always have stories that I share.
Yeah.
I still remember this one couple. They were buying their first home in their later 50s.
Okay.
So that means it's a life accomplishment.
Yes.
And I had 9 closings that day. I did all the closings out of the office. My team did all the closings in the office. So I was a little spent.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go through everything, very nice closing, and my client says, do you have a few minutes? And I'm going, I'm ready to fall asleep under the conference table. I said, but for you, sir, what can I do? And he takes the keys. He turns to his wife of 13 years, and he said, I promised you and your daughter I would get you a house. We now have our house. I worked the same job for the last 14 years to get us here. And I'm just sitting there going, thank you. I needed that reminder. I just did 9 closings.
Right.
For me, it's sign this, but I'm trying to put in the personality. But those are the reminders that this is likely their biggest event. And then now I joke and I go, so you closed in a pandemic. I'm like, a year from now, are you going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I wonder what my lawyer looks like because he had a mask on the whole time. But it's I couldn't have this approach if it wasn't a more public interaction. Like if I were to be a litigator, my approach probably wouldn't translate well.
Yeah.
But given what I do specifically, it resonates great for the client experience.
Yeah.
And there are some clients that I try to read it's their 9th home.
Yeah.
Usually in those they go, oh wow, I understood a lot more at this one.
You really don't know what you're signing. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
No matter how many you sit there, you're just signing. Because, at this point, we just trust you. So it's like, all right, sign. My first time, I was like, I don't get these words. I don't understand, like, what I was even doing. You are nervous because you are signing in my mind, I was like signing my life away. I was like, this is all the money I'll ever have. It was like $100,000 house. But, in that moment, you're so nervous. So, it's great when you're there and making it fun.
Yeah, and I really enjoy it. What's nice, and I had a young woman, I remember it was at the Canandaigua location, and it was a Friday morning like a year or two ago, and it was funny. I don't even know if she was 20, and she was there with her mom, and she looked at me 10 minutes in and goes, do you like your job? And I was like, I believe you're wondering about the repetition of what I do.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, this seems boring, like all these documents. I'm like, right, but as we go through the process, you'll find I like engaging with people. So I'm rather social. So for me, I don't find it taxing. And then when there's problems or concerns, I often have somewhat of a monotone voice. So even when there's problems, the clients aren't as nervous.
Yeah.
So the client's like, oh, there was a real issue there, but you addressed it.
Yeah.
And so it's very much on purpose. And so it was nice. By the end of the closing, she was like, I could see why you would like this, but I wouldn't. I was like, no, this fits my personality. This is the right role for me. When it comes to things of this nature, if one of my attorneys had to do this type of event, they wouldn't prefer it.
Yeah.
They would actually do very well, but they wouldn't prefer it. Whereas for me, I walk into closings where I have never seen the file,
Yeah.
but we have them prepared, so it makes it almost, I jokingly say, idiot proof. So we have notes for everything that weird that happened, the correspondence your clients receive, because they'll go, oh, I don't know if I got this. And I could go, this is the email we just sent. Do you want to see it? Oh, yeah, thanks. I'm glad you have that.
There's so many documents.
Yeah, but we try to approach everything from a client perspective. And so it's nice. We've had situations where clients have a million questions.
Oh, I bet.
And so the real estate agent...
Probably my last clients that close with you.
But what's nice is I always start the closings by saying, by the way, I'm going to repeat myself with some frequency. I'm going to try to provide as much information as you need, but please interrupt with questions. I probably, on average, have less than one question per closing, but it's because I can anticipate almost all questions. Not all, but almost all. I just had an issue before this where the client had a question, but because of the contract, I knew what the question was.
Right.
So I was able to say, with all due respect, would you like me to just give you an outline of what I anticipate? It may be more efficient. And he was a smart business person, so he said, yeah, I haven't done this. And then when I went through, it was great. When I went through things, he's like, yeah, that was exactly what I was wondering. I'm like, well, we do a lot of these. And that resonates. Now, all of a sudden, I've built up a level of trust. We haven't even issued the approval yet. I'm going to be speaking to him in a few hours because there was an issue he wants to resolve first.
Yeah. Okay, so really quickly back to, all right, we get the contract. It goes to the attorneys. Then what are they do? What are we doing for 2 months or 8 to 10 weeks?
So to some degree, why do you need a real estate attorney?
Yeah.
So I'll bring it back to that. So after the contract has been received, confirmed that it's been received, it gets set up in our system. Once it's set up in our system, it's assigned to an attorney. And then that attorney, depending on how busy they are, will review the contract and contact the client. If we're rather busy, which is often the case, then they'll review the contract and set it up for me to contact the client, to which I'll say, hi, I'm calling on behalf of Kelly McIntosh, or I'm calling on behalf of Kirsten Lamb. We've had a few times where they compliment, hey, that Blake, your assistant, he was very polite and helped out. And I'm like, okay, great. Let him keep...
Yeah, he's great. Thanks.
But it's nice. We have a team approach. So what's fun is for the contracts, they're marked up so that when I do it electronically or paper, I have all the questions or concerns. So they don't look like the contracts you send over. We take and mark them up. So we have all the little questions. So maybe if on page 16 it's got the property condition disclosure statement with something weird, we're going to put that up on earlier in the contract and say, hey, this was noted, so we could ask a question. Or if there was something missing, we're going to discuss with them, hey, because this was missing, these are the implications, and are you aware? Oh, yes, we're well aware. Okay, good. And then I can get the information to the attorney so that then 2 months later, if a client doesn't recall, we could say, no, we have documentation. We discussed these things.
Smart.
In addition to that, after the approval call, we issue our approval letter and an engagement letter. So it outlines everything. So it's overwhelming to sign a contract, get into a deal. And right now with the stresses of possibly signing several contracts before you finally get a deal, we try to have a process that helps the client along. So in addition to them getting a copy of the attorney approval like you would receive, we also then send them an engagement letter that basically outlines the process for us.
Good.
So the hope is you're telling them certain things and they're also hearing it from us.
Yep.
Then for a purchase transaction, we're usually then putting in all the dates. So certain dates may be for the mortgage commitment, certain dates may be for the inspection, so that we can have that diaried. And we review it. Sometimes right now, given everything, if you have a mortgage commitment that's too fast, we may, before reaching out to do the approval, check in with the lender and just say, hey, is that reasonable? Oh, yes, for this reason, we're going to
Okay.
deliver. So we try to double check everything.
Nice.
When we're doing the approval, we're confirming the information in the contract and answering questions. Most first-time home buyers, it's funny, they say, I don't know what questions to ask. I'm like, well, that's perfectly fine. Would you like me to just give you a general overview of the process? And then I go through that. Then based on our diary system, we have basically a dashboard that each day tells the attorneys what things are coming up.
Nice. Okay.
So it's nice from you and your client's perspective. We're just on top of things. But in reality, we have cheat sheets.
Yeah. We all need them.
Absolutely.
I put everything in my phone for mortgage commitments and all that stuff because I let one slide and it could be the whole,
And
deal going.
that's the issue. We don't want to reach out on, January 3rd because something's due on the 3rd or the 2nd. We want to reach out on December 20th saying, hey, we haven't gotten this yet. What's the status? And that helps you do your job well because, frankly, once we get referral sources, we have to make sure they're well protected so that their businesses grow. Now, importantly, for why you need a real estate attorney, the next part of the process is where we're doing the most important work.
Okay.
So the clients feel it's when we're speaking to them. The real estate agents feel when it's us protecting and answering their questions, but it's actually the review of the title documents. That's the entire key for having a specific real estate focused lawyer. I've even had transactions where lawyers hire us because it's just like if I need an estate attorney, I have an estate attorney. We don't do much of that work. And so that's where we're reviewing the abstract of title, which is a history of the property, because people will think if they're buying a new home, there can't be title issues because it's a brand new home. It has nothing to do with the age of the home or the improvement, because we think of you buying interest in land with improvements on it. Most people think of buying the house at this address, but that's not how the lawyers perceive it. And so we're reviewing the history of the property to see what issues may exist that could be resolved or may not be able to be resolved.
What are some issues?
Certainly. Well, usually for real estate, once you hear there's a title issue, the loan officer, the real estate agent, and the client go, ugh. And to be frank, so are the attorneys.
Really? Because Kirsten's like, it's fine though. We'll just do this and that. I'm like, all right.
Well, Kirsten, in addition to being an attorney, also has a title license, just like I have. However, Kirsten's really good at it because she worked for a long time as in-house counsel at a title company.
Well, there you go.
So the most important aspect of real estate is her focus.
Perfect.
And what's nice is she's training Kelly McIntosh.
Good.
So that's why attorneys, when they're butting heads with my attorneys, it's because they're really good at what they're doing, and it can be very frustrating to deal with someone who has the answers. If they view this, they'll laugh at that, I hope. But that's the most important part. So from a title perspective, when we're reviewing the abstract, let's say you're buying a home from an investor. Let's say the investor bought the home from a tax foreclosure. Well, in those situations, we really have to do an evaluation to make sure there's going to be no issues. So when you close on the property, you don't have, prior tax liens that weren't noticed in the foreclosure sale. So things of that nature are extremely complex and important to review, and it's one of the main reasons you really need a real estate attorney, not for all the talking and explaining documents, but actually to make sure you don't have issues. We, with frequency, get clients that purchased without us or without an attorney at all, and then we have to help fix their issues. And they get very flustered because they're buying a house to flip it, they bought it cash, they want to put a loan on it, and that's the first time title gets reviewed.
Okay, so then they can't get the loan.
Correct. Until the
Possibly.
title issues are resolved, and title
I hope my
issues take
husband hears this.
well, title issues take time and money to resolve. Right now, we probably title issues almost always arise. Most of them don't get back to the client or the real estate agent because the title issue might be that the current mortgage needs to be paid off.
Okay.
During a transaction, we pay off the current
That can happen.
mortgage.
Yep.
But what if you have a prior owner mortgage that the discharge was never recorded? That's common, and that is
How do you do you have to find the person? Like, how do you literally in other states and everything? Like,
at times, what we do first is we'll review to see in the prior transaction if there's any documentation by the prior attorney or by the title company that issued the insurance. They should have what we call title curatives. If they don't, that's a real problem. Like, we keep our stuff indefinitely because it's just, I don't want to say, hey, legally I could shred this.
you might need
It's
it.
been 23 years. I didn't have an obligation, but many other firms don't, which is really weird. Technology allows us to image things, so there's a cost, but borne out over thousands of transactions, it's a small cost with a huge benefit.
Right.
So title issues are usually the main reason that you want to be working with a real estate attorney, because many attorneys that don't do real estate, they just dabble in it, they'll hire that out.
Okay.
And then you can end up in situations, and if you don't fully understand the implications, we have a lot of times people will close on stuff we would never agree to close with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm wondering if a lot of people are for sale by like selling their homes themselves these
FSBOs.
days. Yeah, and I'm wondering if a neighbor comes up and is like, "I'll buy your house," and they just kind of like make the transaction, and then there's issues down the
They
line.
inherit. Yes, unfortunately, that happens. We get probably one or two, I call them FSBOs, for sale by owners, a week. We then prepare the contracts, but we also encourage them to consider utilizing a real estate agent, given the fact that we don't evaluate the value of the home. So one problem is there's a perception of I'm going to save 3 to 6% by not using a real estate agent. But if you were to sell a $100,000 home that in this market could go for 130 or 140, and that's a discussion we have. Most of our for sale by owners are interfamily.
Yeah.
So it's you buying from a cousin or a grandmother.
Yeah.
Those are where it's not as much of a discussion, because then it might be, I understand I could get more, but I don't want to. I want to help out.
Literally, that's us. We bought our parents' home, or we are in the process. My parents' home. So, and you guys are doing that too. Somebody else though, not Kirsten, because when
Kelly?
it must be Kelly. But it was so funny because John emailed Kirsten one day asking about it. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Every
And I'm like, John's like, she doesn't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you're emailing the wrong person.
it's probably, well, without getting to specifics. Because
Yeah,
it's,
no, I mean, it doesn't matter. It got worked out, but because my husband's all over the place sometimes, and I'm like, that's not even the person that emailed us about it, you know? So poor Kirsten was probably freaking out.
Oddly, I know exactly what you're talking about, but won't comment further on there.
I'm like, oh my God, sorry. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay. So we figured it out though. All right, so that makes sense. So then she's even told me before, like we just got the title back. We just it has to be reviewed or whatever. And then it goes right to closing, or we're ready to close. So then closing, what are the documents that you're signing?
Certainly. So if you were to have a transaction that didn't have a bank, so if you were buying just cash, it's actually very simple. You're going to have two documents that are related to taxes and reporting the transaction to the municipality and to the state. And those are just saying who bought, who sold, for how much, and then the deed. There's going to be, if there was a real estate contract, there's going to be some other documents that are for title purposes, but they wouldn't be signed by the buyer. They're just going to be there to protect the buyer, so they know exactly what is happening and what was disclosed by the seller.
Are you guys involved with like the insurance company for, you have to get an insurance binder when you're buying a house. You have to there's so many people involved. Like, do you get all those documents? Like, you know that there's insurance on it. You know that it was appraised. You know that the bank loan went through and all these things.
Yes.
You guys have all of that.
For a bank transaction, yes, we will.
Okay.
We'll get a copy of the insurance binder and paid receipt because we won't schedule the closing without it. Because that's a detriment to the client because they'd be taking a substantial risk. Relative to the banking process, yes, we represent and work with a near 30 lenders. So often we're bank and buy. And related to that, we're in a situation where we're going to make sure we have the commitment. We're going to make sure that we have everything that's needed through underwriting so we can get to a clear to close. So we work very tightly with our lender referral partners. And even if they're not a referral partner, we're still going to have a large amount of the process. They're very much the same because it's to protect the client.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. It's such a crazy process.
It's rather overwhelming, but once you do enough of them, it's rather similar. Like it's rare for someone to raise an issue I haven't dealt with before. It's not impossible, but probably 99 out of 100 issues we've seen before. The 1 out of 100, the attorneys get together and we're like, "Wow, did you see this? This is really weird."
Do you have any you can think of right now? Just any really strange situations where you're like, how did this even happen? What do we even do here?
Well, one that the public might benefit from was we had within the last year or two a real estate transaction by firms that do real estate. Obviously not going to use any names, but our client went to sell. We did not assist them in the past, so they came to us. He didn't own the house. And in his opinion, he's like, "Well, I assure you I've been paying for it and improving it and living it there." And I said, no, I believe everybody thinks you own the house, but you do not, because 2 transactions ago, someone for tax purposes, I believe, or asset protection, tried to put the home into a trust. However, they never put the home in the trust, and they sold the home to your people who you bought from through a trust, but it was never a trust asset. So it's had a few transactions, but it was never caught. So the client was he was pretty good about it, given that I was telling him, "Hey, by the way, you're selling a house to buy a house. Please don't buy the house yet because
you don't own
you don't actually own this house." And it was funny, as a professional courtesy, we just reached out to the lawyers and said, "Hey, this happened. This is what we need to do to fix it." And it was humorous because the attorneys disagreed with us. And then it turned into a title claim and a lawsuit. And then quickly the attorneys agreed with us and the issue was resolved.
So do you think that might have happened the last time when it was still in the trust, when it was sold? Like, people just are like, "Oh, it's fine," like this.
Yep, they missed it.
Oh,
you can have times where you have Blake LLC and then Blake 1 LLC, and then Blake LLC owns the property, but Blake 1 LLC sells it.
Yeah.
So it actually happens with frequency.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because that could happen to us, actually.
Very much so. However, that's why we dot I's, cross T's, and also have insurance. We make sure to get our clients get owner's policies to protect them, and then I carry a lot of insurance in case we were to make a mistake.
Right. Wow. There's a lot that goes into this stuff. Let's see. How many deals do you think that you've done in your time?
Ooh. In my 15-year career, I would probably say I've got to be near 10,000. Wow. Our hope is to originate around 2,000 this year. And I think we have a very good shot at it. But that's with my whole team. I mean, my biggest benefit over the years is having a team behind me. I really enjoy that I can walk into a closing against anyone else and feel very comfortable that I've got everything I need. And you have a number of times people come to the closing, "This isn't my file, I'm just covering."
Every time I'm in there. "Can you make a copy of this? Can you find this document?" Yeah.
Yeah, and that will not be our client's experience. But that's because I have a team that I know and trust, and they they make it idiot proof for me, and it's hysterical. People will go, well, do you have this, this, and this? I'm like, it's in there and it's labeled. Like, it's not just for
Yeah.
my benefit.
Yeah.
Well, I also need this. I'm like, there's an extra one in there. Please go through everything.
Right.
We do a few of these, and there's many offices that do a volume, and the ones that really focus on it do it well, and other ones miss that it was Blake 1 instead of Blake LLC.
That's insane. All right. So, do you own any properties of your own?
My wife and I own a home on Rutgers Street. We, in the past, had rental property. It was our first home. We kept it for a period of time. However, the market was so good that we were able to liquidate it and do very nicely. We'd probably consider it again, but right now, it's better for us to invest in our businesses. So though the rental market has great returns, Karen and my wife and I, between our 4 businesses, we do pretty nicely by investing in them.
Yeah.
And there are years that it doesn't require much investment, and there are years that there's a lot of zeros that I'm using to keep everything going well.
Yeah.
So we find that that's a good investment for us,
Yeah.
and we enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I just wondered. Since you see real estate all day long, I'm sure people are like, Blake, you got to buy this. Blake, buy the house next door, you know?
Yeah, yes. Sometimes when I'm sharing stuff on social media, my wife will go, "Oh, I really like that one." I'm like, "Oh,
Oh, no. Let's go see it.
yeah, exactly."
You can call me. I'll help you.
Exactly.
All right. And what's a normal day in your life look like?
What's funny is, much like a doctor or a dentist, when you look at my calendar, I'm booked. So often from around 9 to like today, 7, sort of when I'm wrapping up a little. And then I'll still do some work, but my calendar won't be booked. But I have times where I'll do 6 to 10 closings a day. I'll have times where I have 6 or 7 phone calls in a row every 15 minutes. So what's nice is I have a whole team that I get to choose what I want to do. So I like going to closings.
Yeah.
And I like problem solving. And so what's nice is I'll usually have intro calls, approval calls, problem solving calls, development of business calls. And so I don't need much tee up for them. So when people call, like if you called my phone right now, it's forwarding. So you would get my receptionist, and she would just say, "What are you looking for?" If it's something the team can't handle, she just puts it on my calendar with a little blurb, and it might say, Tony's looking to buy his mom's house. So then I'll call and say, "Tony, how are you? I hear you're looking at buying a house in her family. Yeah, I don't know where to start." And then I could say, "Excellent. What's your email? I'm going to set up to send you a form email that says everything we need." So it's not just me sitting there taking notes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's going, no, we have a whole form. Many of our emails are forms. So if you do enough deals with us, you start going, "Oh, you guys always say the same things."
I love that. Efficiency.
Yes, that's a large part of what I've been working on the last 2 years. And even today I was having meetings for efficiency. I was like, okay, we've reached another level of growth. So now we're going to work on just little minute changes that hopefully have a tremendous impact.
I love that. I feel like my whole career I've worked on just efficiency of everything. You need good employees, though, too,
Yes.
to do that.
That is absolutely the key. And I feel that right now we're near the strongest we've ever been. I'm hoping to bring on one more intern. We have people that are brand new, that are just thinking of law school, all the way up to people that have more than 40 44, 45 years experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate, and then that allows me to shine because I
Yeah.
can focus in my areas. I'm really good with problem solving. I believe communication, and that allows me to focus in those areas. But I haven't prepared like a deed in years. So I used to do A to Z. Now I get to choose certain areas.
That's when you know you've made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So is there anything else that you would like to share about what you do?
Well, one thing that I think is very important is you have to find something that you thoroughly enjoy, but also it's not you like your work so you never work a day in your life. No, I work. If I were to have found X dollars sitting there, I would hang up my but I really do enjoy the advocacy. And the one thing that I have found that surprises me is how much I like developing my team members and the talent around us. I was having a conversation with a family friend earlier today, introducing them to real estate. And so I like developing people, relationships, and businesses. And it was funny. I was letting them know. I said, "You are aware that this is mutually beneficial. Even if I mentor you, you'll likely use my firm for your
Right.
real estate career. So please appreciate." And I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's what I like with real estate because there is that mutual benefit of working together. Obviously, as we help you and your husband, your business grows, that helps our business to grow. I think there's sometimes a little bit too much competition in the industry. And my usual position is, look, I'm competing against myself. I'm not competing against others. I just want to do better than I did yesterday. It doesn't have to be substantial, but just a little better. And that usually results in us having continued success.
Well, and for us, it only took. I almost feel like I Facebook messaged you one day because I was like, I have a question and I can't get in touch with the attorney that I need to talk to. And you called me back right away and answered it. And from that day on, swear to God, to ask my husband, I was like, I'm using Blake for everything. And I do. I refer pretty much all my clients to you. Well, at least 50%. A lot of them have their own that
and
they
that's
work
fine.
with. But yeah. So thank
Well,
you.
it's a neat business in that if you work hard and you surround yourself with the right people, you should continue to have success. All you have to do is, as you're having more and more success, don't forget how you got there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I hope I get that big someday. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here
course.
today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And if anybody else has any questions, I'll write the information for Blake, for getting in touch with Blake, and follow him on Facebook. Definitely, it's very interesting.
You can see the lady.
Yeah, and you can meet the lady virtually. So thank you very much, and that's it for What's on the Market, episode 4. Thanks.